Hi, welcome to This Expat Life. My name is Amanda Maxime, and as a certified coach, I help high-achieving expats find more fulfillment and happiness in their global lives. Because while life abroad is often amazing, it is not only rainbows and butterflies, as all experienced expats know. In This Expat Life, I open up space for all facets of life abroad and what you can do to thrive in it. And to support you in your personal, professional, and geographic life transitions, I share tips, tell relatable stories, and connect with fellow expats. Whether you've just moved abroad or you are a seasoned expat, This Expat Life is your place to find real understanding and to grow from the inside out. Enjoy the show. How to strengthen your intuition, how to hear your own voice better so you can make better decisions. This is a topic for today's episode of This Expat Life and totally borrowed from some questions I got from my clients inside the Copilot. The Copilot is my program where I help you make the big life decisions that you've been avoiding in your forever changing global life with so many moving pieces and important elements. And it's sometimes hard to hear what is actually the right choice for you, to hear your own voice in it. And we were talking about several things related to this in the Copilot, and I thought then it's interesting to have this conversation with my listeners as well, because if they are having some difficulties with it, so will you most likely. So we're going to be talking about your intuition today and how to strengthen it. And I am not an intuition expert, but I am blessed with a very strong intuition already from an early age, I would say. I remember when I was 19 and I decided to quit my law studies and travel for almost a year. And where all my peers at that time were going to Australia or Asia, I had an intuitive download, as we call it in a more spiritual world. I had an intuitive download about the fact that I needed to go to Latin America. It was no question. I didn't even research it. I didn't even compare the three regions. I just knew it is Latin America. And so I went there and I totally proved right. It turned out to be my biggest love. I spent over 6 years there by now. I've gone there every year. If I'm not living there, then I'm going to be there on holiday. I even studied Latin American politics. My different jobs that I had were about Latin America. This was really my region and still is. Now I'm moving to Mexico. And so that intuitive download I had at age 19, like it was such a strong calling. I could not ignore it, and it proved to be so right. And I've had more of these intuitive downloads where sometimes big about like, I just know I need to go there, or I know that this is not the place for me. And a couple of months ago, you may have heard this on the podcast, I was on my bike and I had like this voice. I know it sounds a little bit schizophrenic maybe, but I had this voice telling me, Amanda, you need to pause your one-on-one clients, your coaching. You should pause taking new clients in. And this was like a conclusion that didn't make any logical sense, because a good part of my revenue comes from my one-on-one coaching. And to just pause that, I was like, what? It doesn't make sense. But I decided to trust an intuitive download, and it turned out to be the best decision I could have made, because not only did I have a lot of rest after that and I felt my energy coming back, I also had my second biggest month in terms of revenue ever. So by doing something that seems contrary to my goal, I actually achieved my goal and way more, because I wasn't expecting that. And so I have been pretty good with my intuition. I don't have any difficulties following it most of the time. And I know people also, admire is a big word, but I know that they really sometimes see me doing things and they're like, oh, I wish I had that too. And so in today's episode, I want to go briefly into what you can do if you are feeling like, I need to make some life decisions, but I just don't know what to do. Or I don't even hear myself anymore in my own life. And I want to develop my intuition more, because I'm doing so much from autopilot or from my rational brain, and I don't actually know what my intuition is telling me. So whether you are at crossroads right now, or you've been thinking about a change, or you just feel like you're living a life that isn't fully, truly like your own anymore, or you just want to have a better connection with your intuition, I hope that these tips are going to be useful. The first tip that I have is that I want you to assume that you have intuition. And by the way, I'm going to have 5 tips. I'm looking at my notes. And the first one is I want you to assume that you have intuition, because maybe you haven't been feeling your intuition, or it's been like absent, and your conclusion is, so I don't have an intuition, I don't have a strong intuition. But I want you to start changing that, because everyone has intuition. It is just buried underneath a lot of noise and other things that we have internalized, so you cannot really hear it anymore. So the first tip is I want you to start saying to yourself that you have an intuition and that you're ready to hear it. So if you are thinking about your life choices, or there's something where you say to yourself, oh, I wish I had an intuition like my friend, or I wish I could hear myself better, or I wish I could just hear or let myself be led by my own voice more clearly, start saying to yourself, I have an intuition that is guiding me and I'm ready to hear it. Just say that out loud, say that to yourself on a daily basis and see what changes. That's tip number 1, assume that you have it. Tip number 2, and this is a really important one, and I was thinking about that recently because one of my clients asked me, she said, Amanda, I have such difficulties hearing my own voice. Like I just don't even know what I want. And I'm trying to do like the future self-visualization, and I'm trying to do this and that, but I just don't hear my own voice. Do you have any tips? And so I asked her, do you listen to a lot of podcasts and other things during your day? And besides work, like before and after work, do you have any time free, any white space for yourself? And she said, actually, the moment I wake up, I listen to a podcast. Then I go to work. When I take a walk at lunchtime, I usually listen to something too, or I have a conversation with my colleagues. And then when I come back, when I'm cooking, I'm listening to things again. And she is single, she lives alone. And I totally get that, because I used to be like that too. And I also have my cats to talk to. But I always liked filling up my space with, helpful things, productive things, not productive, but like useful things. And this is not because I needed to fill the void or anything, but I also like learning. And so I listened to things that were genuinely good for me, things about personal development, or certain like more in-depth news stories, or things about the human psyche, or things that I cared about. And so I thought always, okay, there's nothing really wrong with that, because I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm, using my brain in a good way, until I realized I'm filling every single space with this. And I told her this as well. If every moment of your day that you're awake is filled with other people's voices, then how are you going to find your own? So I gave her this tip number 2. You need to quiet the noise. If you want to hear your intuition, if you want to strengthen it, if you want to hear your own voice, you need to quiet the noise around you and inside of you to be able to hear yourself more clearly. And so what you can do is stop listening to so many podcasts every single day, including this one if you need to. Also, I like to listen to the news often in the morning, just because it gives me a sense of waking up. But it's a lot of crap nowadays on the news. And so I also deliberately shut it off, because sometimes I don't want to start my day with that, because I want to start with something that brings me closer to myself, with a meditation or with just nothing. So don't fill all your space if you're someone who has been filling up your space a lot with other people's voices, whether that's podcasts, books, the news, conversations with friends, calls with your loved ones back home. If you want to hear yourself more, you have to quiet the noise around you first. And you can also do that with meditation, with visualizations, perhaps other tools that you have, but you want to start lowering that background noise so you can hear yourself more clearly. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is related to a phrase I once heard during my coaching training. I did 2 coaching training of 9 months. It was filled with so much good stuff. And one phrase I very clearly remember, and that is, your body already knows what the mind is not yet willing to hear. Your body already knows what the mind is not yet willing to hear. And this is often because our mind is so attached to an outcome or an expectation or something to the past or emotions and pain from earlier on, that we are not always open to hearing the answers that are already within us. And our body already knows because our body does not have that particular attachment. And tip number 3 is also then related to it, because you can use this to develop your intuition. So you can get in touch with your physical sensations more to develop your intuition. So a lot of us are like walking heads. We do everything with our heads. All our energy is in our head. We analyze everything. We think our way through things. We use all our brain power to solve things. When something happens, we just mull over it again and again. We think about it so much. And so a lot of our power is in our head. But we forget that we also have a body attached to it, a body that has its own wisdom. And when you can get more in touch with what you're feeling physically and also emotionally, you also have more answers. This is why this is one of the pillars inside the Copilot. And your way to practice your intuition is to get also in touch with your body more and those physical sensations. So I want you to start practicing it. If you are presented with a choice, you can say to yourself, okay, this is option A. You say it out loud. And then you check in with how your body is responding to that. I had this when I was thinking about where am I going for my workation that started last December for 3 months. And I had like 2-3 options. And the 2 options I was really thinking about were Mexico City and Lisbon. And Lisbon made a lot of sense on paper, but I just kind of felt like a inside my body, like a I couldn't really explain it. People also didn't really understand it, but I just felt like no. And it was a hesitation that I could really, really clearly feel in my body. And so you can do the same if you are debating between 2 job offers. One is like something that you've done before, because maybe you were laid off in the tech layoffs recently, and so you need a new job. And job offer number 1 is something you did before. It is prestigious, it's good money, but the pace is also very high. There's a lot of stress, but it is like certain solidity if you care about some of these things. So you say to yourself, okay, this is option A, and then you describe it a little bit, and then again, you notice how you feel. And then maybe option 2 or option B is another job offer that you got that is a little bit, it's not a demotion, but it's less prestigious. It's also less stress, perhaps a little bit less pay, but it does give you more space in your life for the things you also care about. Perhaps you want to start a family. And so then you talk about option B. And then you feel again, okay, how does this option make me feel? Because both have something good to offer and both could speak to you, to parts of you, because these different parts of you value those different things as well. So if you only let your brain decide, it's very hard to decide which part you value more. And if you bring in your body to the equation, you have another perspective on what matters to you. And so maybe you feel with option A, you feel like a knot in your stomach, or your throat get tight, or you feel a lot of tension, or you get a headache. And with the other option, you feel like, and like a relief, an exhalation, space. And maybe on paper, it doesn't really make sense to take that job, but your body already knows the answer. So get in touch with those physical sensations, not just for the big questions that you might be facing, but start practicing it with small ways. You can notice it also in conversations. If all of a sudden you get a feeling in your body about when you meet someone or they say something, practice getting in touch with it and asking it what does it want you to hear? Sometimes it's your intuition saying like, oh, something is off with this person and I need to care about them and ask them what's going on, or they are lying to me. All right, tip number 4 is I want you to start practicing your intuition in small ways. So you can use your intuition for the big decisions like I'm doing, where am I going to, when, what am I going to do with my life? But you can start practicing it with things where the stakes are not so high. And this is what I would suggest. So when you are at the supermarket and you need to buy groceries, let your intuition decide what you're going to eat. Maybe the list that you determined on Sunday is telling you to buy XYZ, but maybe ask yourself, what do I actually want right now? What is my intuition saying I should go for? You can do that with your days. Like, what do you want to do with your free day? Maybe you've created this whole to-do list of tasks and chores that you have to do, and it's hard for you to sit still anyway on the weekends because you always feel like you want to be productive. But maybe ask yourself, what do I want to do? What is my intuition now telling me to do? Not my brain that tells me what I should be doing, but what do I want to do? When you're going somewhere and there are multiple routes available, ask your intuition, what routes should I take? So practice your intuition, strengthen it in very small ways where the stakes are not high. There's no, you cannot make a mistake. There's no consequences. And then check afterwards, was my intuition right? And maybe you can practice it as well with your relationship. Maybe you're dating someone. Ask your intuition. Okay, yes, I want this to work, but actually, what is my intuition telling me? Just yesterday, I was meeting with a friend and she said, oh, I totally didn't listen to my intuition because I wanted to work this. I wanted that this would work so badly. And so start practicing your intuition and check afterwards if it was the right thing or not. Because especially if you journal about it, maybe what physical sensations you had, what your options were, what you thought your intuition was saying, and then afterwards, were you right or not? At some point, you have data, and then you can see, okay, with these physical sensations, this is usually when my intuition is right. So start practicing it. And then tip number 5 is allow for time, space, and play in your days, because so many of you are so goal-oriented, you're so productive, you want to achieve big things in your life, or you're just always busy because you've never really learned how to relax, or you live a very full global life. In those busy days when you're always doing things, it is really hard, let me say it this way, it can become harder to make space for your intuition and to hear it. And when you allow for time and space and play, then you have also more room for your intuition. When you have time off, you can experiment with what your intuition is telling you to do right now. When you have more space in your days, it becomes easier to hear your intuition. And when you allow yourself to play more in life, that you experiment more, you can also test and practice your intuition more. So if you're very rigid with a very rigid schedule and there's no room for anything spontaneous, it becomes a lot harder to practice it. So open up that schedule, make space for it in terms of time, but also like in your mind. Allow yourself to play in your life, because this is when your intuition can really come out and you can test and practice it. So I hope these 5 tips were useful. I'm just going to repeat them one more time. Assume that you have your intuition. That's tip number 1. Number 2, quiet the noise in your days. 3, your body already knows what the mind is not yet willing to hear, so get in touch with your physical sensations. 4, practice your intuition in small ways where the stakes are not high. And 5, allow for time, space, and play in your days. And you'll see once you implement these 5 tips, not just listen to these tips, but really implement them in your life, over time your intuition will get stronger. And then this is also when you can use it for bigger decisions. And by the way, if you want some help with those bigger decisions still, because your intuition is not fully there or you lack the courage to actually execute your decisions, you know who to hire, because inside the Copilot, this is exactly what we do. So get in touch if you want to hear more about that. For now, I wish you a wonderful day wherever you are, and talk to you soon again.